Moving on, a landmark trial begins over Arkansas's ban on trans youth care.
So I've not gotten any of the latest news on this. I don't have the latest updates, but I do know that this is a this is a linchpin court battle. Arkansas was the first state to outlaw gender affirming care for minors. It was a near complete ban on gender affirming care for minors. It did not necessarily rule out therapy, but it did definitely remove uh, puberty blockers and hormone treatment access for those under 18. The first 3 days of the trial involved some of people that we consider some of the heavy hitters for the trans community here in Arkansas, including a 17-year-old trans male, who is phenomenal in being a representative for the community. There was a father whose daughter had decided she was going to end her life because there was just no way that she could go forward. And that father talks about the experience of reading his daughter's suicide letter. Also, one of the doctors who works with trans youth in the Little Rock medical system also was talking, and she talks about she talked about what their process was, how to bring minors into the puberty blocking process, which I think she said it was 11 months before they even begin that process, that they talk for 11 months, then they begin the puberty blockers, and then gender affirming care comes down the road. But she also talked about how when this original bill it was originally defeated by the governor, but the legislature went back and they overrode the veto. And when that happened, um, this doctor said that 4 of her patients um, reported that they were going to end their lives. And these are the powerful voices of the trans community here in Arkansas, and they're going up in front of this judge, to explain, what this law will do to children and youth in Arkansas. So I'm keeping an ear and an eye on this one. I do have people I know, and I can get more up to date information as we go along.
Just such a chilling story, a chilling line there of the doctor saying that 4 of her patients have
Yeah.
threatened self harm over this. And it's just, again, really sad because, like you said, the doctor detailed that it takes 11 months to go through this process to determine if you're viable for taking, HRT or even hormone blockers.
Mhm.
And the right, for some reason, on this issue, has gotten into this belief that for some reason, just in the transgender case, that there's no medical discipline whatsoever behind it.
Right.
It's they don't have a problem with surgeons doing brain surgery on kids or heart surgery or these sorts of things, but and they believe in the process there. But here in this case, they for some reason think that there's no rigor, there's no policy or procedure that's in place and followed for trans healthcare. And
Right.
and again, it's one of those things where it's so hard to rebut that because they're so far from reality to begin with, that how do you contradict that, and how do you get them to listen? The other thing that I'm really curious about, and if you have any insight on this, let me know, is what laws like this are doing to um, puberty blockers in general for kids who have precocious puberty, who start puberty at 6.
Right.
Those sorts of things. Because again, the big lie being that puberty blockers is the Wild West. We have no data on it. We have no idea what it does. No, we've been using it for decades to great effect for folks that need it. So,
Right.
do you have any insight into, Does this eliminate puberty blockers across the board, like their blanket abortion bans?
No, this
No.
does not block puberty blockers in any other case other than gender affirming care. Puberty blockers are and have been used for decades for precocious puberty, for people who are well under the age of puberty, who begin typically, if they are uterus owning individuals and they begin menstruation at 8 and 9 years old, puberty blockers have been used to halt that and give that child a few more years to reach the more typical age of puberty. They're still being used for that as far as I know. But here's the other side of that. They are also being used for extracurricular activities. There are individuals who benefit from not entering puberty
Mm.
and continuing through the development process for a few more years before they begin puberty, where some of those things are halted. And
Are you
those
talking
are
about
not
things like?
those are off diagnosed, off prescription uses. Those are not prescribed for that
Mm.
initially. That's not what the FDA used them for. They were for stopping puberty in the case of precocious puberty. But people found out there was this benefit so that they could eke out a little bit more time for their kid in enhancing their performances in certain ways. And so they would use it for that. Now, it's been used that way for decades also. So it's not been prohibited in that use either. It has only been prohibited in the use of gender affirming care.
Does that apply to boys choirs? Is that one of the
It
things you're talking
may.
about?
It really may, but I've not heard of it in the use of boys choirs. But to allow a youth a few more years, or a couple of years of bone growth to give them a little more height, or to allow them to stay thinner, because when people hit puberty they put on different body fat and
Mm.
musculature that increases their weight. So I can see that in like figure skating, I can see that in gymnastics, I can see that in a few areas where if you can keep those individuals body weights down, it definitely does improve their athletic performance. And there are no prohibitions against puberty blockers in children's sports, even if it provides an athletic advantage.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just this is all just leads to the thing that we've been saying over and over again. The things that they say about the why and what they're protecting and all that, it's all a lie. The only thing that they're trying to do is erase trans people from existence. That's the only goal here. There's no other altruistic piece to this.
Well, and the use of puberty blockers and the hypocrisy of claiming that gender affirming care is an invalid use while still recognizing that it still can be used in precocious puberty, as well as not drawing any boundaries against, development enhancement, is the same as the exceptions that are drawn for intersex surgeries.
Mm, yeah.
And Kari made this point to us before we went to air, that intersex individuals undergo surgeries against the will of the patient, because many times those surgeries are happening before a child is 2 years old.
Mm.
And in some cases, they are done without the knowledge of the parent, or through emotional coercion, where they're basically told by the staff, by the doctors, that if this child does not have this procedure, they're going to experience more emotional problems as they develop down the road. So there are, in every one of the bills that has ever been written that outlaws gender affirming surgeries, there has always been an exception to allow for the surgery on intersex infants and children. And the practice has been that some of those have been done without parental consent, and all of them are done without the consent of the child.
Mm-hmm.
So they're willing to keep their hypocrisy in place and allow for those procedures to create normal children, because in their mind, being an intersex child is a problem, or it is something, it is a defect. And so by correcting that defection, in their body, they are given a better chance at success in life. And what we've been able to see is that as these children grow their into their puberty, into their adult times, we begin to see them in some cases having serious conflicting issues with the procedure that was done because an arbitrary choice was made on what physical gender representation that child would be given by the doctor.
Yeah. And it totally illuminates the false belief of the right wing and a lot of these doctors that are doing these procedures, that the body is the only thing that matters for gender. And we're trying to show, no, 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 it's one of the least important factors
Yeah.
in gender.